A father sat quietly in a first-class seat, holding his young daughter's small backpack on his lap as if it were the most precious thing he owned. Minutes later, an airline supervisor walked down the aisle, pointed at him in front of everyone, and ordered him to leave because a wealthy passenger wanted his seat. Humiliated, carrying the pain of years spent rebuilding his life alone, he walked toward economy without a single complaint. But less than an hour later, the very airplane that had pushed him aside sat frozen on the runway as a sleek private jet rolled into position, forcing everyone on board to stare in disbelief. What happened next left the entire crew speechless and changed every heart on that flight forever. If you believe kindness is never wasted, forgiveness is stronger than pride, hope can appear when we least expect it, and everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel to join our growing community of people who believe compassion still matters. Graham Mercer had never cared much about luxury. Years earlier, he had been a successful aviation engineer whose life revolved around designing safer aircraft systems. Everything changed after his wife, Claire, passed away unexpectedly following a sudden illness. Overnight, Graham became the only parent to his 6-year-old daughter, Elsie. Every decision he made afterward centered on giving her the stability she deserved. He turned down promotions that demanded constant travel, accepted smaller consulting contracts, and spent every spare afternoon helping Elsie with school projects, reading bedtime stories, and reminding her that even though life had become unfair, love had not disappeared from their home. Months before this flight, Graham had finally accepted an invitation to attend an international aviation innovation conference. The event represented more than professional recognition. It offered him an opportunity to present a safety technology that could prevent future accidents and potentially save countless lives. The organizers had booked him a first-class ticket because he was scheduled to deliver the keynote presentation immediately after landing. Graham hesitated about traveling, but Elsie insisted with the innocent wisdom only children possess. She told him that her mother would have wanted him to keep helping people. Those words stayed with him throughout the journey to the airport. The morning sun poured through the terminal windows as travelers hurried between departure gates. Graham carried only a small leather bag and the backpack Elsie had secretly filled with handmade drawings. Every picture showed airplanes soaring through bright blue skies with smiling faces looking out the windows. Tucked inside was a folded note that simply read, "Come home proud, Daddy." Graham smiled every time he remembered it. Boarding went smoothly, and he settled into his assigned seat near the front of the aircraft. He quietly reviewed his presentation while other passengers found their places. The calm atmosphere suddenly shifted when an elegantly dressed businesswoman arrived with an airline supervisor. She loudly complained that she always flew first class and refused to sit several rows behind because she considered it beneath her status. Instead of explaining that every seat was already assigned, the supervisor scanned the cabin for someone he believed would not argue. His eyes stopped on Graham. Without checking the reservation details or asking respectful questions, the supervisor informed Graham that he would need to move to economy because the airline needed to accommodate another passenger. Graham calmly explained that his seat had been reserved weeks in advance and that he had an important conference immediately after landing. The supervisor barely listened. Nearby passengers looked away, unwilling to become involved. Graham realized that arguing would only create a larger scene, something his daughter had always reminded him to avoid. Swallowing his disappointment, he gathered his belongings, smiled politely, and quietly walked toward the back of the aircraft. The walk felt far longer than it actually was. Every step reminded him of how quickly people judged others by appearance. His comfortable jacket and worn travel bag apparently convinced someone that his dignity could be exchanged for convenience. Yet he refused to let bitterness take control. Sitting in economy, he unfolded Elsie's note once more. Her tiny handwriting steadied his heart better than any comforting words from strangers could have done. Meanwhile, the woman who had taken his seat settled comfortably into first class, convinced she had won. Several flight attendants privately felt uncomfortable about what had happened, but none challenged the supervisor's decision. One young attendant named Natalie watched Graham from a distance. She noticed how graciously he accepted the humiliation without raising his voice. Something about his quiet strength stayed with her. As the aircraft prepared for departure, an unexpected radio transmission interrupted routine procedures. Ground control instructed the pilots to remain in position because an arriving private aircraft required immediate coordination. Passengers sighed impatiently as the airplane stopped moving just short of the runway entrance. Minutes passed. Then every passenger looked out the windows. A stunning silver private jet slowly approached under escort vehicles before stopping directly across the active taxiway. Airport personnel hurried between vehicles while radio messages continued. The delay stretched longer than anyone expected. Inside the commercial aircraft, frustration spread quickly. The businesswoman who had demanded Graham's seat loudly criticized the airport for allowing a private jet to interrupt commercial traffic. Other passengers agreed, unaware that something unusual was unfolding outside. The captain soon received another message, and his expression changed completely. Instead of annoyance, he appeared surprised. Ground staff requested permission for a representative from the private jet to board the aircraft before departure. Curiosity filled the cabin. A distinguished airport executive entered through the front door, accompanied by two aviation officials. Rather than walking toward first class, they continued directly into economy until they stopped beside Graham. The executive extended both hands warmly. His face carried genuine respect. Several nearby passengers watched in complete silence as Graham stood and greeted him. The executive explained that the private jet belonged to the Aviation Foundation sponsoring the international conference. Graham's arrival had become uncertain after airport officials noticed confusion regarding his assigned seat. Because he was scheduled to unveil groundbreaking emergency safety technology and receive the Foundation's highest humanitarian innovation award, the organizers had dispatched their aircraft to ensure he reached the conference on time if necessary. Airport coordination had briefly delayed departures while confirming whether Graham wished to transfer. An astonished silence settled over the cabin. The same passengers who had barely noticed Graham earlier now realized the quiet father sitting among them was one of the world's most respected aviation engineers. Graham gently declined the invitation to leave immediately. He explained that dozens of families on the commercial flight had schedules, reunions, and responsibilities waiting for them. Delaying everyone further simply to provide him greater comfort did not feel right. He thanked the organizers for their kindness but requested that the commercial flight depart first if possible. The airport executive smiled with admiration. He quietly replied that true greatness often revealed itself through humility rather than achievement. Natalie, the young flight attendant, felt tears forming as she listened. She finally understood why Graham had remained so calm during his humiliation. His character was stronger than his pride. Word spread throughout the cabin within minutes. Passengers who had ignored Graham earlier now looked at him differently. Some smiled apologetically. Others lowered their heads in embarrassment for silently accepting what had happened. The airline supervisor who had forced Graham into economy stood frozen. For the first time, he realized that authority carried responsibility, not entitlement. His decision had not simply reassigned a seat. It had stripped a grieving father of basic respect. He slowly approached Graham and sincerely apologized. There were no excuses. He admitted that he had judged Graham based entirely on appearance and assumed he would not object. Graham listened quietly before accepting the apology with remarkable grace. He explained that mistakes become meaningful only when they inspire change. Holding on to resentment would help neither of them. Even the businesswoman who had demanded the seat could no longer hide behind her confidence. Watching Graham forgive the supervisor stirred something inside her that years of professional success had failed to teach. She quietly returned to economy, insisting Graham reclaim his original seat. This time he accepted, not because luxury suddenly mattered, but because the gesture represented accountability instead of privilege. As the aircraft finally departed beneath a bright afternoon sky, the atmosphere inside had completely transformed. Strangers who had boarded as isolated travelers now shared smiles, conversations, and unexpected kindness. Several passengers thanked Graham for reminding them that dignity should never depend on clothing, wealth, or status. After landing, conference organizers welcomed Graham with standing applause. Yet the moment that mattered most happened hours later when he returned home. Elsie ran across the front yard into her father's arms before he could even close the car door. She asked only one question. She wanted to know whether he had made her mother proud. Graham smiled through grateful tears as he showed her the humanitarian award resting inside his travel bag. Then he placed it gently beside her drawings on the kitchen table. He explained that awards eventually collect dust, but kindness becomes part of who we are forever. That evening, he told Elsie about the people who apologized, the strangers who learned compassion, and how forgiveness had turned an embarrassing morning into something beautiful. She listened carefully before hugging him tightly, reminding him once again that the strongest people are never those who demand respect, but those who continue giving it even after being treated unfairly. Months later, the airline introduced new customer service training inspired by the incident. Employees learned that every passenger carries a story invisible to others, and every decision should begin with dignity rather than assumption. Natalie became one of the program's most passionate instructors, often reminding new crew members that kindness is remembered far longer than convenience. Before this story ends, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone judged you by your appearance, only to discover they were completely wrong? Leave a meaningful comment below and share the lesson that experience taught you. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember that true character is revealed not when life places us in the best seat, but when we choose kindness even after being asked to stand up and move. Sometimes the greatest victories are not won by proving others wrong, but by proving that compassion is always stronger than pride, forgiveness is more powerful than revenge, and hope has a remarkable way of taking flight when we least expect it.